When Simon meets Winter King for the first time, he is clearly feeling inadequate. I suck, as he succinctly puts it. Who can blame him? The Winter King is an alternate version of him who simply appears to be a better Simon Petrikov.
I know everything.
He is cheerful, he runs his own kingdom, and he is intelligent, graceful, and charismatic. Meanwhile, poor Simon is battling depression and is actively plotting to surrender to oblivion via the cursed crown. Of course, Simon doesn't suck as much as he thinks. When we first meet him in the Fionna and Cake series, he's looking after Marcy in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Keeping Marcy fed, safe, and happy is more than Winter King could achieve, more on that later. But beyond this simple example, Simon's experiences set him apart from the Winter King in a way that isn't immediately obvious. And I think this is the key to understanding the importance of the Winter King to Simon's tragic story. Experience shapes all of us. According to the philosopher David Lewis, there is truth to the saying that experience is the best teacher. As an example, he refers to the thought experiment of Mary, the captive scientist. In this example, Mary, a brilliant scientist, has lived from birth in a cell where everything is black or white. Even she herself is painted all over. She views the world on black and white television. She reads books, she joins in discussion, she watches the results of experiments done under her direction. In this way, she becomes the world's leading expert on color and color vision, and the brain states produced by exposure to colors. But she doesn't know what it's like to see color. And she never will unless she escapes from her cell. This thought experiment suggests that sometimes you just need to live through something, see it for yourself to truly understand it. Let's get back to Simon. There are reasons he is depressed. Once, struggling to raise Marcy gave him a sense of purpose, but she's all grown up and flourishing in a romantic relationship. As for Simon's romance, it ended when Betty sacrificed herself for him. It seems he deeply cares about these relationships, perhaps too much. As for Winter King took the cursed crown and harnessed its power to his advantage. Incidentally, I have a video on the way about how the crown was cursed in the first place, so stay tuned for that. Winter King cast a spell to project the madness in his crown onto an alternate Princess Bubblegum for 100 years, creating the unhinged Candy Queen. Winter King seems to have got over losing his version of Marceline by creating a fake one out of ice, a kind of animated toy. Essentially, through trickery and fakery, the Winter King has secured a world where he is eternally happy, but he has no relationships except with his own simplistic creations. If Mary, brilliant scientist and color expert though she may be, never actually sees the color pink, she can talk about it, but she doesn't actually know what it is like, what the experience is like to see the color pink. To the Winter King, relationships, love, all these mushy concepts are just a pink mess that he can't actually understand. It's outside his experience. When Simon mentions Betty to the Winter King, at first Winter King can't remember her at all, only to cheerfully identify her as the dead one. Unlike Simon, the Winter King doesn't remember her as the love of his life. Both versions of Simon eventually at some point put on the crown and faced its curse. Simon became Ice King. Perhaps it's because he's a man who has loved and lost, that Ice King's search for another love is imbued with such a palpable sense of desperation despite his loss of memory. Winter King never loved at all. He is slick and cool as a cucumber because his emotionality is shallow. He has never felt the raw or heartfelt emotions that would give him depth. Remember, Winter King argues that through sheer force of will, he was able to manifest his own reality. This is an interesting way of framing his parasitic exploitation of PB. This is not to say that he's shallow simply because he's never fallen in love. Rather, it's to emphasize that his love is entirely self-directed, at the expense of everyone else. Maybe this self-obsession is what helped him resist the crown's influence long enough to devise a way to project its curse onto PB. Simon Petrikov, unlike Winter King, desires genuine connection with other people. When he put on the crown and became the Ice King, this desire was warped into a pathetic and insatiable obsession. And yet, as far as we can tell, if Simon had been more like the Winter King, Marcy would be dead. And so, through a foil like Winter King, we can see that while Simon Petrikov may sometimes care too much, it's not just a weakness, it's also a strength. That wraps up my thoughts about Simon and the Winter King. If you liked my take on Simon and his charismatic alter ego, you can help the channel by liking and subscribing. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed already. Have a great week and thank you for watching.